My granddaughter texted her mother, "She'll die soon anyway," and sent it to me by mistake. So I sent back a screenshot of the $6 4M trust in her name revoked. That night, snow fell thick as shredded pillows, blanketing the front steps where I was forced to sit. The wind lashed at my face like bitter lashes, but I stayed a ghost on the porch no one bothered to see. From inside, the steam and scent of chicken soup drifted out. I had cooked that soup hundreds of times ever since Eric was 8, chubby-cheeked and eager for his bowl. But tonight, I would not taste a spoonful. I would only breathe its memory from the cold. I was banished to this porch because I had caused one spill-me trembling hand caught the edge of a pot, and broth splashed over the floor. Selenemy daughter-in-law had been on edge for days, but tonight she called back from Hawaii the moment she heard. Still in a bikini, cocktail in hand, she barked, "Get her out there. Age is not an excuse for incompetence. I told you keeping her inside only brings misery." Then Taylor, my granddaughter, who once called me the best grandmother ever, looked me over with a dead gaze. "I did it. She's out there now, exactly where people who don't know they're a burden belong." She closed the door without looking back. I drew my ragged sweater tighter. My eyes tracked the window. There they sat, eating soup, laughing. That was my table once. I painted it, refinished it, placed flowers on it. But tonight, I have no seat there. My phone buzzed. A message arrived from Taylor. "Mom, it's done. I dumped her outside after she spilled the soup. Feels like sweeping away decades of trash. If she dies tonight, even better." My heart skipped. She meant it. She sent it to her mother. But by mistake, it came to me. Trash, die. 3 poisonous words. And this was from the child I once tucked in bed. Read stories to, loved as if she were all I had. I stared at the screen. I did not cry. I did not gasp. I only opened my camera and captured it. The image went into a folder labeled Rosanna, the only name now left in my life that made me feel I existed. Rosanna, the neighbor girl who used to beg for peppermint candy, whose little cheeks I secretly stuffed with treats on her way home from school. Now she is a lawyer. When she visited and found me pale, spitting blood after taking the vitamin mixes Selena gave, she whispered, "Don't ignore what feels wrong. If someone is trying to kill you slowly, live long enough to prove it." She showed me how to document, to keep pills, to plant micro cameras in the kitchen. Once I thought I was paranoid. Not anymore. I know. Taylor was live streaming dinner now. I watched her laugh, sip a spoon of soup I once stirred, from the same table I once polished. Then, the message disappeared. Taylor had retracted it. Moments later, another message came. "Grandma, did you get something weird? I might have hit someone by mistake. If you did, just erase it. Don't tell Mom. You don't want to cause trouble, right?" Trouble. Yes, they always frame me as trouble. I did not respond. I just saved the screenshot again, just in case. The wind pounded glass. Snow fell denser. I stared at my hands' veins blue and sprawling, like old roots. They once cradled her, knitted her sweaters, wiped her tears. Now, they only collect snow. I pulled up a photo from years ago, me holding 6-year-old Taylor under a Christmas tree, my husband John fastening a golden star atop its peak. I remembered his gentle eyes, his rounded shoulders I rubbed each evening. Now, I sit here alone. I whisper to the wind, "John, they told me I should die with you, but I think I will live a while longer." To show them some, do not die quietly. They wait for just the right moment to walk away and carry away everything they were told would be theirs. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I was not always this invisible shadow on a porch. Once, long ago, I stood at the front of a classroom, my name Mrs. Tina Morris, written in careful chalk strokes on the blackboard. I taught children how to read, how to count, how to say, "Thank you." For 35 years, I believed that kindness was something you could teach by example. I was wrong. John, my husband, was a man who believed in doing right even when right did not pay. He owned a small construction business, no big deals, no shortcuts. When other men bribed inspectors to pass unsafe buildings, John refused. "If it falls one day," he said, "it will crush someone's son. I could never sleep again." And because of that, he lost everything. The contracts went to the corrupt, and the honest man went home with empty hands. When he died, his heart simply stopped one winter morning. People at the funeral whispered that he was a good man. But when the guests left, my son Eric said the words that still echo, sharp as broken glass. "Dad meant well, Mom, but meaning well doesn't pay the bills. You should have pushed him harder." Selena said nothing then, just rubbed Eric's back like a proud coach, smiling over my shoulder. That smile was my warning. I just did not see it yet. After John's death, the house felt like a museum where love had been boxed up and sold at auction. Selena began redecorating everything, painting over the walls John built, tossing out the furniture he made. "We need a fresh start," she said, her voice honeyed but hollow. "Something that looks successful." I watched her replace the photographs on the mantel, wedding photo, John's graduation picture with a gold-framed mirror. "It makes the room brighter," she told me. I saw my own reflection staring back, small and unwanted in the corner. Selena has always loved symbols of victory, designer handbags, perfect photos, expensive silence. And to her, I was the opposite of that. A reminder that life used to be ordinary, that sacrifice was once a virtue. Sometimes she said it outright. "No offense, Mom, but you're from another era. Eric and I are building something better. You wouldn't understand." Better. That word meant ruthless in their language. Eric, my only child, never defended me. When Selena's words cut like blades, he looked away. Once, I asked him, "Do you believe what she says about your father?" He answered softly, "Mom, please don't start. Selena just gets nervous when you bring up the past." Nervous what? A gentle word for contempt. He was afraid of losing peace in his marriage, afraid of being labeled a mama's boy. So he chose silence over truth, again and again, until silence became his signature. Years passed, and Taylor grew up breathing that silence like oxygen. She was only 6 when she first called me old-fashioned, repeating Selena's tone perfectly. By 12, she corrected my grammar. By 16, she asked me not to come to her school concert because, as she said, "Your clothes smell like old books." Once, I overheard her talking to a friend on the phone. She laughed. "My grandma's like a ghost, haunting our house, always there, never doing anything." I was in the next room, folding her clean laundry. In this family, worth was measured by visibility. If you were on a screen, in a photo, in a bank statement, you existed. If not, you faded. Selena had her degrees, her networking events, her spa days. Eric had his job, his golf clients, his carefully rehearsed humility. And me? I was just the old woman in the back room. A relic from a time when people still believed loyalty mattered. They stopped asking what I wanted for birthdays, stopped saying, "Good morning." At Christmas, my gift came in a plastic bag, a scarf from a discount store, still with the security tag on. I remember one Thanksgiving when a neighbor complimented Selena on the turkey. She laughed and said, "Oh, Mom helped a little. She's good at small things." Small things. Like raising her husband's child alone, like teaching generations of children to read, like selling her wedding ring to pay for Eric's first semester of college. Small things, indeed. The cruelty was never shouted. It was folded neatly into polite tones, into the way they spoke over me, not to me. And Eric, the one person who could have stopped it, remained still, hands in pockets, eyes on the floor. When people asked about me, Selena said, "She's fine, just old." When they said they'd like to visit, she replied, "She sleeps early, best not to bother her." That was how I disappeared while still breathing. By the time I realized it, even the walls seemed to forget my name. I had become part of the furniture, something to dust around, something inconvenient to move. But memory is a quiet weapon, and I have always had a good memory. That night on the porch, when Taylor's message burned on my screen, I realized it wasn't the first time they had tried to erase me. It was simply the first time they pressed send instead of whispering behind closed doors. They thought I would fade like an old photograph. But they forgot. Photographs can be scanned, saved, and shared forever. But even when they tried to erase me, they forgot one thing. I am not a footnote in their story. I am the author of my own. I sold the little house my father left me, the one built by his hands, to help Eric pay off debts he claimed were temporary setbacks. I did it quietly, no fuss, believing that a mother's sacrifice should make things easier for her children. Then, I used the proceeds to loan Selena money for her nail salon money never formally acknowledged. When her business finally became profitable, her name was the one on the door, her logo on the sign. I was never mentioned, never asked for credit. I raised Taylor from the moment she was born. I held her through fevers, wrote bedtime letters in flowing cursive, bought her the small, upright piano she had begged for. I cooked her soft porridge, sewed her dresses, took her to the park when she was tiny, read her poems under lamplit nights. I believed love was the quiet thread that bound families together. I was wrong. Somewhere along the years, I became nothing more than that old smell, that fading presence. Selena would wrinkle her nose, muttering about the smell of old age. Taylor refused to come near my cane, said it smelled musty, as though bones gave off stale air. On holidays, I was seated behind a pillar, unseen until dessert. My birthday cards came from discount stores, items so thin they bent in the mail slot. When I finally created that trust $6.4 million for Taylor, I told no one. It was money slowly gathered from old pension funds, wise real estate decisions, small stock dividends saved for decades. I thought, if there is one person who might love me in return, it must be her. I left the instructions hidden, hoping she would prove she merited it. If not, the money could quietly vanish or go somewhere good. But what I never anticipated was betrayal so wide, so obvious. The night I was shoved onto the porch like an old coat tossed aside, Rosanna saw me. She was passing by, returning home from her law office late. She stopped, saw me curled against the thunderous wind, did not hesitate. She came forward, wrapped her scarf around me, murmured, "Grandma Tina, why are you here?" and gently guided me inside her warm home like a child in the snow. That night, I slept on her couch, cradled in blankets and hushed concern. She brought me tea, warmed medicine, counted my pulse. In the small kitchen, she laid out a folder she had prepared earlier. Inside were documents, instructions, charts. She whispered, "I made this in case you ever needed tools. How to record, how to store pills, how to document faint voice if someone is trying to kill you quietly." Her eyes, earnest, said more than words. "If they want you dead," she said, "you must live long enough so they face what they did." He didn't just give me documents. She gave me back my name, my voice, my fight. I remember the ache in my bones that night felt less heavy because someone believed I still deserved a fight. The next morning, she gave me a pen disguised with a camera and tiny recording capabilities. She taught me timestamps, evidence packaging, the importance of keeping duplicates. When I left her home, dawn still cold, I felt the first spark of resolve in years. I began keeping a small journal. Date, time, what I ate, every pill I was given, every small twinge in my stomach. I kept the pills themselves in tamper-evident bags. I set up tiny cameras in the kitchen and living room. Rosanna helped with wiring disguised in curtains. I listened to whispers, caught slurred accusations, watched as they viewed me with contempt. I recorded them saying I was useless, that I should fade away. Even so, I persisted quietly. I still cooked what little meals they would tolerate, cleaned the small corners of their rooms, folded their clothes, but now with a memory sharper than ever. Each act of care was also an act of evidence gathering. I knew the moment I allowed pity to soften me, their contempt would swallow me again. Once, Selena handed me a pill she called vitamin supplement. I swallowed it, obediently. Later, my stomach tied itself into knots. I rushed to the bathroom, retching. Rosanna's lesson came back. Save the pill, note the time, record the reaction. I did. The next morning, I played back the camera near the kitchen, and there she was, her hand hovering over my glass of water. She abandoned it and left the room without addressing me. I saved that clip. Taylor would come in sometimes, stare at me when she thought I didn't see, tug at her phone. I felt the contempt radiate from her cold, calculated. She called me slow behind my back, spoke to friends about how I was dragging her future down. I recorded those conversations too. Because in that night of betrayal, when she sent that message with Taylor's lips shouting her hatred and Selena's voice commanding my banishment, I had finally awakened. Their disbelief that I had the power to fight back was their greatest mistake. Now, every kindness I once offered is catalogued not in memory, but in evidence, receipts, letters, recordings. I know what I gave. I know what they denied me. And soon, they will know what I withheld. Silence no longer protects them. I walk forward, step by fragile step, carrying both my heartbreak and my plan. For the first time, I am not begging to belong. I am preparing to demand justice. The vitamin ritual began again the night I returned home from Rosanna's. Selena had sent a neat plastic bottle, the label printed in soft pastel colors. Daily Health Boost, Advanced Multivitamin. Taylor set it beside my water glass at dinner, her voice carefully sweet. "Grandma, Mom said you have to take these every night. They'll help you sleep better." I smiled faintly, said thank you, and pretended to swallow. When she turned away, I slipped the pill into a napkin, folded it, and hid it inside my sleeve. That night, I lay awake, the sound of wind scraping the window pane. My stomach twisted as if it remembered what the pills had done before, the cramps, the sudden cold sweat, the way my limbs had trembled until morning. My heartbeat felt heavy but steady. Fear had transformed into precision. The next morning, I opened my journal. I wrote the date, the time, the color of the pill, and the name Taylor had used. Then I used the miniature camera Rosanna had installed on the kitchen shelf, its lens, hidden behind a small porcelain bird, to film my next dose. The camera caught the reflection of Taylor placing the bottle down, her phone in one hand, her laughter leaking through her teeth. Every night, I repeated the act, feigned swallowing, coughed lightly, hid the pill. I wrote down each symptom when I had accidentally taken one, each strange dizziness, each hour of sleeplessness. I noted the patter always after dinner, always when Taylor was home, always followed by that empty kindness that smelled like guilt. For days, I kept silent. Silence was my shield and my weapon both. I waited for them to speak without fear, and they did. Taylor's voice carried easily through the thin walls one afternoon as she chatted with a friend on speakerphone. I turned on the small recorder Rosanna had given me, a button pinned to my cardigan, no bigger than a coin. "I swear," Taylor said, her tone light, casual, cruel, "if Grandma would just stop breathing, this house would finally have some space. Mom says she's hanging on out of spite. I believe it." Her friend laughed. "You're awful." Taylor replied, "No, I'm honest. We'd all be better off. Even Dad says she's miserable to live with. He won't say it out loud, but I can tell." I paused the recording, sat very still. It felt like the air itself was listening. I saved the file under the same folder as the screenshot of her message. Then I whispered quietly, almost as a prayer, "That's one. The first proof." From then on, I captured everything. The sound of Eric's resigned sighs when Selena complained about me. The way he said, "Just let her, Besh'll be gone soon anyway." The way Taylor snorted in agreement. Every word became a thread in the tapestry I was weaving, one they would not see until it was thrown over their heads. 2 weeks later, I pretended to feel worse. I walked slower, coughed harder, kept tissues in my pocket. Taylor grew impatient. "You should take more of the vitamins," she said one evening, handing me 2 pills instead of 1. "Mom said double it if you're feeling weak." I looked into her eyes, smiled gently, and swallowed one just one before, hiding the second in my palm. Within an hour, my stomach clenched, my skin felt clammy. I staggered to my chair, opened my journal, and wrote everything down. The handwriting shook, but I made sure every letter was legible. Then I photographed the page and sent it to Rosanna with a single line, "You were right." That was the moment I realized. Their comfort relied on my silence. So I decided to speak one piece of proof at a time. The next morning, Rosanna arrived, pretending to deliver mail. Her eyes met mine, calm and direct. She whispered, "We'll have the pills tested soon. Keep everything. Don't confront them yet. Just gather." So I gathered. Each night, I slipped another pill into a small glass jar, labeled it by date. My notebook filled with neat handwriting, page after page of evidence. I became meticulous, clinical like one of my old students, cataloging a science project. Only this experiment was my life. And yet, even as I built my case, part of me ached. How had it come to this, me, recording my own family, counting down the moments between each lie, each spoonful of poisoned kindness? One night, when I couldn't sleep, I turned on the tiny camera screen and replayed the footage. Taylor standing in the kitchen, holding the vitamin bottle, shaking it in her hand as she texted. Her face looked so young, so cruelly untroubled. I thought of the child she once was, the way she'd climb into my lap after a nightmare, whispering that she never wanted me to die. I had believed her then. Now I looked at her through a camera lens, a stranger wearing my granddaughter's face. That realization did not crush me. It sharpened me. The next day, when the morning light cut through the curtains, I closed my journal and whispered to the empty room. They think I'm dying, but I'm documenting. And in that simple sentence, the shift was complete. The victim they tried to bury beneath their convenience had learned how to dig in the dark, and she had found her first piece of truth. I took a deep breath in the dark living room and flipped open my phone. The air felt hollow, my fingers trembled. I opened Taylor's message again, the one I had screenshot her cruel words about me dying in the cold. Then I opened the secure folder where the trust documents lay, the documents only I knew were real. I composed a new message, one single line: revoked. Then I attached 2 images, the screenshot of her message and a photo of the trust document in my own name, now marked with a red stamp I'd added earlier, revoked. 2. Revoked. Below, I typed a quote I'd long held in my heart. A person who lives by cruelty should not expect to be blessed. I pressed send. Let the world watch how dignity departs from cruelty. Moments later, my phone rang. It was Taylor's number. My chest tightened, yet I held my ground. She cried on the line, inconsolable, voice trembling. "Grandma, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was angry. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. Please forgive me, Mom," she forced me. "I never wanted you to suffer." I listened to her sobbing through the receiver. The child I knew beautiful, stubborn, full of mischief had become someone whose words could be weapons. But I said nothing. No pity, no promise. Then Selena's number flashed. My heart jolted. I braced myself. She spoke first, in that crisp, controlled voice I once admired. "Tina, this is going to be very messy for you. Lawsuits, defamation. You think you can revoke that trust just like that? I could lose everything, and I won't hesitate to drag your name through the mud. Think twice before you destroy your family legacy." The threat felt like a blade in the dark. I stayed silent. I refused to raise my voice because I knew the fury already lived in me. Then they both texted. "Taylor, I'll do anything to fix this. Selena, you're making a horrible mistake." I stared at both screens, the voices of my own kin, screaming at me through pixels. The world felt small, but my resolve felt wide. I stepped outside, into the porch where snow still lay unsettled. My breath fogged in front of me. I looked up at the sky, gray and unmoving. I whispered, "Let them scream, let them beg. They have dug themselves a grave of words." I walked back inside and closed the door softly. I thought of all the years I had given me youth, my sweat, my silent sacrifices. I had believed that love would shield me. Instead, I learned that love given without boundaries becomes an invitation to harm. I did not respond further. I did not call them back. I did not blink. I locked my phone and I closed the curtains over the windows. Outside, the snow muffled the house in silence. Inside, my heart was a storm, readying itself. That night, I wrote in my journal, "They see me as weak, they see me as old. But I know what they fear, that I will stop asking permission to live. They will try to claw back their image of control. Let them. I will not shrink. As I drifted into sleep, a single thought stayed with me. This was only the beginning of reclaiming what was never theirs to take. The day Selena came home early from her trip, her heels clacked across the floor like punctuation marks. She wore a silk blouse and too much perfume. I knew immediately. She wanted something. "Mom," she said with a smile so wide it looked stapled onto her face. "We've been reviewing your medical coverage, and Eric thinks it's time we upgraded your policy. For your benefit, of course." She held out a thick envelope. "Just a quick signature here. Its routine makes sure if anything happens to you, everything's in place to cover costs. Very standard. I've already pre-filled most of it." I looked at the paper. Insurance policy was printed in bold across the top. The rest was small, dense text, too small for old eyes. She pushed a pen into my hand. "You trust me, right?" I did not look at her. I looked at the pen. A gift from Rosanna 2 weeks earlier. "For peace of mind," she'd said. Inside was a tiny lens, disguised in the clip, voice activated. High-quality audio. I uncapped the pen, smiled back at Selena. Then I signed. As I wrote my name, she exhaled as if cashing a check. Later that evening, when they thought I was asleep, I heard Taylor and Selena laughing in the kitchen. "She signed it?" "Like a lamb," Selena replied. Taylor whispered, "Does this mean we finally get the condo?" "Soon. Eric's already checking resale value. She won't last the winter anyway." The next morning, I delivered the pen to Rosanna. We watched the footage together. The video captured Selena's hand hovering over my shoulder, her voice cooing about routine, her whispered smugness as I signed. The audio was clear, unmistakable, legally damning. Rosanna's expression didn't change. She simply said, "Now, we let the law do its part." 3 days later, a court motion was filed. The assets tied to the insurance documents were frozen pending investigation. An elder abuse specialist was assigned. Eric received a court summons. Selena's salon faced an audit. The trust already revoked was now evidence of coercion. They wanted me to sign away my life. Instead, I signed the beginning of their unraveling. Taylor was called into her university's ethics committee after the recording of her wishing my death leaked online, an anonymous submission made from a burner email Rosanna set up. The committee deemed her conduct in violation of institutional values. She was suspended indefinitely. The ripple was immediate. Selena's phone stopped ringing. Clients canceled appointments. Eric lost his seat on the board of a local charity. My name, once whispered, as a burden, was now spoken with fear, anger, and, by some, apology. But I gave no statements. I did not gloat. I did not call to explain myself. I let the world spin around them the way they had once spun it around me. And as the ground cracked beneath their feet, I sat by my window, sipping chamomile tea, watching the snow melt from the porch where they once left me to freeze. At 10 a.m. sharp, they stormed into the bank. Selena wore her stiffest blazer. Taylor had forced herself into a somber turtleneck, and poor Eric looked like a man hoping the world still owed him something. They walked up to the teller, slid the papers across, and said they were here to claim the life insurance funds for Tina Morris, anticipated payout beneficiary on her declared health plan. The banker furrowed his brow. "I'm sorry, but Mrs. Morris canceled this policy 10 years ago. It no longer exists." Selena's nails tapped the marble countertop. "That's not possible. She signed just last week." The banker, polite but unmoved, pulled up the system. "It appears the original policy was nullified in 2015, and there's a current court injunction on all associated financial activity related to that account. I'm afraid your family is being investigated for elder coercion." Taylor's mouth dropped. Eric went pale. And just like that, the castle they thought they had built on my grave crumbled in broad daylight. By that evening, the footage had gone viral. A low-res clip of Taylor saying, "I swear, if Grandma just stopped breathing, we'd finally have space," followed by a second clip of Selena laughing. "She's like bad luck in human form. Can't wait till she's in a box." The internet responded swiftly. The local news picked it up first, then the national blogs. Elder abuse. Justice. For Grandma. Not just old. Selena's salon received thousands of one-star reviews overnight. Protesters held signs out front, "My grandma matters, and don't let age be a death sentence." The landlord evicted her within the week. Eric's employer issued a press release. "We do not tolerate employees who enable harm toward vulnerable family members." He was dismissed that same day. And Taylor? The girl who once performed Swan Lake in my living room wearing my scarf as a tutu? Her scholarship was revoked. Her school issued a formal suspension, citing ethical violations unbecoming of a student leader. Their empire, built on silence and assumed immunity, was done. They laughed when I was quiet, but they never imagined my silence had a witness, and that witness had a folder. No fists were raised. No revenge screamed. Just the quiet collapse of a story too ugly to survive the light. Weeks later, I sat with Rosanna over tea. "You should have it," I said, sliding the folder across to her. The full documentation, bank transfers, property deeds, the $6.4 million trust, now completely in my control. She shook her head, gently pushing it back. "I didn't help you for that, Grandma Tina." "But you saved me," I said softly. She smiled, eyes warm. "Then pay it forward. Give it to those who never even had a grandmother." That night, I knew what to do. I split the funds evenly among 4 orphanages across the state, quietly, without any announcement or photo op. Just a letter from an old woman who once believed her love had nowhere to land. Now, I visit them often. Little hands tug at my sleeves, voices call me Grandma T, or sometimes just the white-haired fairy. I bring them books, cookies, crayons. I teach them the same poems I once read to Taylor. But these children listen. They laugh. They hold my hand without pulling away. They do not ask for anything except maybe one more story, one more hug. And every time I step through those doors, I feel it. I was not put here to be discarded. I was put here to become something more than what they saw. So I became a legend instead. The morning I left, the sun finally showed itself, as if the sky had been holding its breath through all those gray months. It was spring by the calendar, but it felt like more than that. It felt like resurrection. I stood at the foot of the driveway, suitcase in hand, the same old brown leather case John once used on our honeymoon. It smelled faintly of cedar and old perfume, a scent that made me feel like myself again. The limo Rosanna sent was parked across the street, sleek, black, windows tinted, a small nod to finality. She had insisted. "It's time they see what grace looks like when it leaves the building," she said with a wink. I heard the front door creak open behind me. Eric stepped out, alone. No Taylor. No Selena. He looked worn down, in a way I hadn't seen since he was a boy, afraid of bad report cards. But this fear was different. This fear had grown roots. "Mom," he said, voice low, "I didn't know what was going on. I didn't mean for things to go this far." I turned, looked at the man I'd once fed spoonfuls of oatmeal to when he had the flu, the boy I stayed up with during thunderstorms, the man who had stood silent while I was pushed, insulted, erased. "You always knew," I said quietly. "You just never wanted to be the one who said it out loud." He blinked. I could see he wanted to cry, or maybe scream, or maybe beg. But I had no tears left to receive his sorrow. "You let them speak for you," I said, "and now you live with the silence you chose." He stepped forward. "Mom, I never hit you. I never cursed you." "No," I said, "you just watched them do it, and you called it peace." That was when he broke. The last armor crumbled. He dropped his gaze, like a child caught stealing. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I nodded, not out of forgiveness, but out of recognition that this was as much as he could offer, and it would never be enough. I walked to the limo. The driver opened the door, gave me a respectful nod. Inside, the leather seats smelled like new beginnings. As the engine hummed to life, I looked back one last time. I didn't leave with bitterness. I left with the peace they never gave me. Eric stood in the doorway, the house behind him hollow and sunlit, but somehow darker than ever. And then we drove. The video went viral within hours. A neighbor had filmed it, me in a navy coat, silver hair pinned neatly, climbing into the back of a limo while my son stood frozen behind me. The caption read, "The grandmother they left in the cold just left them behind for good. She took the warmth with her." People shared it across platforms. Some cried, some cheered. The comments poured in. "This is what dignity looks like." "She didn't raise her voice, she raised the stakes." Some exits echo louder than any confrontation. But I didn't need their applause. I already had what I came for: freedom. I moved into a small cottage on the edge of town, near the orphanage I now visited weekly. Rosanna helped me furnish it minimal, sunlit, with bookshelves in every room. There, I wrote letters to the children, taught them to bake, showed them how to read maps and plant basil on the windowsill. They made me paper crowns, called me Grandma T. One girl with tangled hair whispered to me once, "I didn't know old people could be magic." I smiled. Only the ones who survive long enough. In the final letter I wrote I knew would be passed around long after I was gone, I said this: "I do not leave money for those who wished me dead. I leave love for those who once wished I would live. Kindness is not owed to cruelty. Silence is not forgiveness. And the truth? The truth will outlive you all." That house they tried to trap me in? It now sits empty, like a museum of bad decisions. The grass grows tall, the windows fog, and when people pass by, they do not ask, "Who lives there?" They ask, "Is that the house she left?" And yes, it is. I left it with nothing in my hands, but everything in my heart. The day was warm, not hot, not heavy, just perfectly golden. The kind of warmth that doesn't burn but soothes. The kind that reminds your bones that life can still feel good. Rosanna pulled the car up to the curb outside the orphanage, the third one we'd visited that month. Before she could even open the door, I heard them. "The fairy's here." A flood of children burst through the doors, their feet slapping the tile floor, their laughter spilling like sunlight. One little girl waved both arms in the air. Another boy pointed at me with wide eyes and shouted, "Grandma T, the fairy's back." I barely had time to steady myself before I was surrounded dozens of little hands wrapping around my waist, tugging at my coat, wrapping themselves around my fingers. One by one, they grabbed hold, and soon I was the center of a chain. They linked hands around me, circling, skipping, chanting softly, "White-haired fairy, white-haired fairy." I laughed, not politely, not softly, but loud, full and true. It felt like breath I had been holding for decades finally escaped my chest. I looked around at their faces. So many eyes, curious, open, unafraid. They didn't see my cane. They didn't see age. They saw stories, cookies, safety. They saw someone who came back again and never asked for anything in return. One small girl pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. It was a crayon drawing me with a crown, them with big smiles. Above it, in shaky block letters, "Thank you for loving us." I knelt, ignoring the ache in my knees. I kissed her on the forehead. She smelled like sunshine and peanut butter. Behind the group, Rosanna stood on the orphanage steps. Her arms were crossed, her expression soft, still, proud. She didn't wave, she didn't speak, she simply nodded. And in that nod, I felt it. You made it. You lived. You chose love even when they chose cruelty. The children pulled me along as we walked in a slow circle around the courtyard. Their tiny shoes scraped gravel and dirt. I felt their grip on my sleeves, on my coat pockets, on my scarf. They weren't letting go. Not yet. Maybe not ever. One of the boys reached up, brushing snow-white hair from my cheek. "Are you really magic?" he whispered. I smiled. "Only a little," I whispered back. "Just enough to find my way here." Inside, someone was playing the piano badly, but joyfully. I knew the tune. I had taught it once, long ago, to a girl who used to believe in magic too. I looked at these children, no blood ties, no shared names, but love real, whole, and undeserved, and they gave it freely. That day, I did not feel discarded. I did not feel like a ghost. That day, I felt chosen. And in the sound of their laughter, in the brush of their hands, in Rosanna's quiet smile behind them, all I felt like something more than just a survivor. I felt like a legend, a living one, the kind who once sat in the cold, and now warms the hearts of those who never stopped believing in kindness. If this story stirred something in your heart, if you've ever watched someone rise from the cold silence of neglect and walk away with quiet power, then you understand what justice really looks like. At Grandma True Stories, we don't scream for revenge. We whisper the truth until it roars. So if you believe that no one is ever too old to be heard, that wisdom doesn't age, it sharpens, and that some exits are more powerful than any entrance, then please subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Tap that button, share this story, and help us keep the voices of women like Tina alive and echoing. Because when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next porch with another truth we were never supposed to tell.